Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to continue with conversational English. In fact, the very place where we stopped last time, there is before your CIA exams. So we were discussing about how to start a conversation with strangers. First of all, we need to consider why we need to talk to strangers, right? Because as youngsters, we are told not to talk to strangers at all, not to talk to anyone you do not know, right? But as we grow up, we realize that yes, there are instances, circumstances which necessitate conversations with utter strangers. Say, for instance, you've just joined a new class, and by necessity, you have to talk to people. You cannot isolate yourself because that would be rude, right? You not talking to people belonging to your same class is considered rude. Now, you have, say, for instance, you've joined a job. You need to talk to people there. Well, there are instances where you may wonder how they are going to take, or how you generally, I believe that most of the time people do become a little anxious about approaching strangers, talking to people. It is quite natural because there is this fear as to how they may take your take your approach. They may consider you too forward. Excuse me. They may consider you too forward. They may think that you are being a nuisance. That would happen only when you do not know how to talk, that when you do not use the right way of talking. So you need to talk to people, at the same time not be a nuisance to them. How can you manage that fine line? So, first of all, you need to stop being anxious, because you need to think that they are just as human as you are, right? And moreover, you need to think that this is some place where we need to have a congenial atmosphere, all right? Because, see, at a workplace, we are codependent, right? All of us are codependent. So, you cannot keep yourself aloof for long. Ultimately, you are going to need their help, and they are going to need your help. So unless you break the ice, it is called ice breaking. The initial conversation that you make with a stranger, it's called icebreaker. So you need to break the ice right at the beginning, so that there is a smooth flow of conversation and interaction, in your workplace, in your working atmosphere. So here is something I found over the net, because we are not really following a particular text as such, and we're just following the topics of discussion. So there is this thing called personal excellence, which I'm using for today. I don't like small talk in the sense of frivolous conversations, but I recognize their purpose as conversation openers and space fillers in otherwise enjoyable conversations, tools to discover tidbits about the other party, or tools to decrease social distance, such as a manager using small talk to engage a team member. Why does a manager need to talk to his team member? So that he could learn the strength of that team member, right? See, a person in the position of a head needs to know all the strengths and weaknesses of those working under him, so that he could put to use that person in the best way possible, so as to make the entire team successful, right? See, for instance, I may be good at mathematics. Another person may be good at communication. So, if my head gives me the job that requires communicating with people, and the other person the job of doing or handling funds, then that head would be a failure. I mean, he would be a failure as a head, right? So the manager himself needs to know the strengths and weaknesses of all the people working under him, so that he could give the kind of job his people, each individual is capable of doing, is good at, right? Instead of asking us to learn something that we are not capable of doing, why not use the strength that we do have already, right? So this is just one instance where the head needs to know the underlings, or the ones are working under him. But even otherwise, a team member, a co-team member, if you know, if you get to know the other person you are working with a little better, you would actually be able to help that person, and in turn would be offered help from that person as well, right? So you see, it is necessary to communicate. No matter what situation it is always necessary to communicate. All right. So if you are someone who has difficulty getting conversation started or keeping them going, here are 5 methods that will help. First of all, ask a question. All right. So see, you're traveling by train, and there are people around you, of course, people who are strangers, or maybe some family member along with you as well. So there arises a situation where there is too much wind, or the water is entering the coach, or entering the window, through the window that is kept open. A good conversation opener would be like, why don't we just close the window? God, we're all getting wet here, right? Simple. Make it simple. Make it natural. Avoid any awkwardness at all. You see a baby in someone's lap, and you see, that's a cute baby. How old is she? Right? Just simple conversational openers. Or you could be like, someone is reading a book. Okay, do not disturb a person who is reading a book. But even otherwise, once they have put down their book, you could ask that person, that seems to be an interesting and engaging book. What is it? I don't remember seeing that author. May I look at it? May I take a look at it? Well, there are so many ways of opening conversation with people. Or say, for instance, you're eating something and you can offer food to people who are sitting next to you, if it's just snacks, okay? Or yeah, most people do shy away from taking biscuits from total strangers. Okay, we'll stop at that. You could just like talk naturally, okay? Talk naturally. So you could like simply just make eye contact first, and then you could ask, what do you do for a living? I mean, that's not really a great conversational opener, as in first sentence conversation opener. You could start off with something, making an observation. It's too sunny today. God, it's so hot in here. Something like that, right? God is not blaspheming, swearing God, but simply, it's so hot in here. Why don't we open our windows? Yes, do you mind if I open the windows? Something like that. Okay, so here some examples are here as well. What do you do? Great for countries with work-centered cultures such as Singapore, Hong Kong. People here tend to tie their identities with the work and invest a good deal. So this could happen after the immediate icebreaker. As I said, like, why don't we open the window, or do you have enough place to sit, or do I need to move a bit, or something like that. First you need to break ice, and then you need to start conversation with something like, what do you do, right? Or where are you going? Or like if it's a workplace, so what? Or you could ask, what do you work here as? What is your post here? Okay, you work here in the capacity of something like that. All right, maybe not that tone, but yes, you could ask something like, in what capacity they are working in the office. They usually have no problems giving lengthy replies about work, especially if you pose follow-up questions. See, follow-up questions are essential. See, follow-up questions would be what tells them that you are actually listening to them. Okay, so you may ask any random question in the beginning, but at the same time, if you're not giving any follow-up questions, it implies that you have not heard a single word of what they have said. Okay, now and are in fact more comfortable fielding work questions than personal ones like, what is your passion? Nobody needs to tell directly in the first instance what their passion is. It may gradually come up. Nobody questions like directly, okay, what your passion is. What do your siblings do? Well, nobody questions about siblings either. That is highly unnatural. Okay, or what do you do in your free time? Even that is another very personal question. You don't need to ask your strangers in the first meeting itself. So You could talk about politics a little, not really taking sides, or or about education, about you know something that is actually visible to both of you. All right, or a circumstance in which both of you seem to be in currently, right? So those kind of questions may be a good way to start conversation with people. So this question is also great opener for business and work events. Since everyone is there on a work agenda, they would be ready for work talk. After this opener about work, there are tons of questions you can follow up with. From how long have you been working here, to do you like your job, to what made you join this company. See, this is very interesting. See, how long have you been working here? Yeah, all these questions are really good. How long have you been working here? Do you like your job? What made you join this company? This will give you some insight as to the field you're finding yourself in, right? This will also prepare you to some extent about your future, current future, immediate future. Do you travel as part of your work? Again, a very interesting question. So the possibilities are endless if you are interested. If you're not interested, you will be hard pressed to remember a single question to pose, okay? So, second idea, what brings you here today? Another interesting question. See, a useful one for events, be it house parties, social events, or business functions. Use the response as conversation fodder. I'm here to meet new friends. Means the person is open to socialize. Perhaps you can share social events coming up in your calendar. I got the invite from the mailing list. Means the person is already a member of the newsletter. You can follow up on this by asking when he or she joined the list and how he or she knew about this place and so on. So this is something you can also do, like instead of asking generally when you attend some party, and there are bound to be people whom you already know, and there are bound to be people you're total strangers with. So in that case, when you need to talk to a stranger, you find that person interesting enough to converse with, you can start off with so what brings you here? Yeah, what brings you here? So that person could say, I'm related to that person who invited you and all that. And then you could follow up with, what do you do for a job? It was like, or that person would ask you a question in turn. It is only polite. One person asks a question, the other person has to respond with another question after answering the first question, that is. Okay. So that way you can build up a conversation, an interesting conversation with that person. And it is also necessary to keep it light. Try not to be too serious or morose, because I have found those kind of people who really keep long faces even in parties. So be cheerful. At the same time, don't come off as over enthusiastic, okay? Because some people do get irritated by too much laughter, okay? Try to keep it plain, simple, at the same time, a cheerful attitude, all right? So, third idea, what did you do today? What have you been up to? Or what have you been busy with? Well, again, this is something you wouldn't really ask a total stranger as a first conversational opener. You could start off with this after breaking a certain ice there, okay? It's after an initial little bit of conversation. You could start off with these kind of questions. So what did you do today? It could be after a gap of having spoken earlier. So what have you been up to? Again, something not I personally would not recommend this. Yeah, this could be used for second or third questions, but not as the first initial initial conversation opener. So then, now this is a kind of conversation. Sorry, one sec. Now, how did Access go? This is one kind of conversation that could be um, that could be used for people who are not total strangers but are still strangers. All right. So distant acquaintances. For those people, you could use these sentences. So they are in a way strangers to you because you do know them but not well enough, right? So you could ask, okay, how did you go? See, this is possible only if you know some background of them, from as to where they have been or lately, or what they've been doing lately. You could simply ask them, so yes, you were talking about writing a book, what happened? So last time you were talking about something on the stage, so did you follow up on it, really? So how is it going along? These kind of questions you can pose provided you know something of it initially. All right. So here is sorry so here is one fine example of how did XX go. So how did your Sydney trip go? So this person knows that these people have been in Sydney for some time. So I mean, they've gone on a trip to Sydney, and yes, he could start off with this question: what are you up to this week? Since this question is about what's next, it's more appropriate to use it later, in the later half of the conversation, as a space filler if you have ran out of things to say. So this is something that you can ask towards the end of your conversation. You could ask, so what do they plan to do now that they are here? What do they plan to do? Or what do they plan to do in near future? So that eventually you may come up with some similar commitments, and may end up becoming good friends. So this writer also suggests two watch outs. First of all, that when you ask questions, be also prepared to share about yourself. Okay, so you do not completely lay out your entire biodata in front of that person right at the beginning, but at least to some extent you can share something of your own life, a little bit, to that person in vague terms. Okay, so asking one question after another without sharing anything can be perceived as invasive. See, invasive would imply that you are being unnecessarily curious. Okay, unnecessarily curious as in you're interfering. Okay, nobody needs that kind of person. Not an interrogation or an interview. Okay, you want to have a conversation. What is conversation? Conversation is a two-way process. All right. You don't want to have an interrogation. Who interrogates? The police, right? The CBI. They are the ones who interrogate. They ask question after question, they pose question after question, and they do not let you go unless you answer them all, right? So you're not doing interrogation nor an interview. You're not hiring them for a job so as to ask them questions, keep asking them questions without revealing anything about yourself, right? Only in an interview you are supposed to answer, right? The one who is asking the question, the employer, doesn't really need to tell anything about himself or herself at all. So second point you need to watch out is learn to take a hint and move on when the person gives lukewarm response. See, again, lukewarm response would mean that person is not interested. So take a hint as in, if you feel that person is not in the mood to talk, please don't impose yourself on that person. Just move away from that place. Okay, and try to distance yourself, and maybe later, maybe at some better point, that person would realize that he has been rude and will come and talk to you himself or herself. So this is what is the reason why this person says not to impose yourself on other people. I was at a hair salon last week, and this assistant just kept asking me question after question in a relentless fashion, even after I got tired out by her and gave monosyllabic responses. She obviously couldn't read social cues. Now, social cues would imply there are people dropping hints for you. Okay, dropping hints for you that you need to accustom yourself to, or familiarize yourself with, so that you follow them without being told. There are things that some people need to be told, right? And there are things that you simply follow by looking at others, how they are performing. You perform accordingly, you do it accordingly. So these social cues you need to follow, you need to remember. as I was showing disinterest both in my responses and body language. It got to the point where I became highly annoyed by her nosiness, and was ready to ask my regular consultant to take her away. You don't want to annoy people or intrude into their personal space. You need to respect personal space. Third time is a charm. I usually move on after the third consecutive lukewarm response. Besides, you can't have a conversation if the other party isn't interested to engage. All right? So you really, the conversation works both ways. You cannot be the only sole speaker here. If or unless you get really positive response, it is useless to continue or pursue that conversation. All right, so again, another idea is to drop a compliment, right? So you can comment upon the other person's maybe dress, or maybe shoes, or bag, or hairstyle, or their person itself as such, or you could, or something they they may have, or some performance they've done at some point. There are plenty of things to compliment about. The only thing is that you need to be generous enough to compliment people. It is not often that people tend to be people tend to be good with compliments. So you need to learn it as an art as in not artifice. It should not be artificial. It should be a genuine appreciation of that person's quality. Okay, that person's quality, or the quality of that person's belonging, whichever way it is. But don't come off as someone who is like trying to steal away the bag or the shoe, or whatever it is that person has. Okay, that is a nice dress. It looks great on you. Where did you get that? Works better from girl to girl. Else you'll either come across as gay. Okay, fine. I don't need to talk about it. I like your bag. Very classy. Did you just buy it? You look very refreshed. Did you have a good rest over the weekend? Hey Matt, I just read your report on social existentialism and the role of dummies in our society. Awesome work. How long did it take for you to write that? Great job on the presentation this morning, Max. Everyone was talking about it at the pantry just now. You look great today. So you can talk to strangers, people you often see but never talk to. Okay, those people are strangers. Even in the college, there are so many people. When you go there as a colleague, there are plenty of people you don't know initially. But it need not be the case until you leave the college, right? So you can strike up a conversation with just about anyone. So you build up a network of communication where people, where you have some engagement with other people. All right, people from other people, right? So see, wherever you turn, you should be able to smile at them, whether you know them or not. All right, so I'm not talking about total strangers on the street. You don't smile at them. Please, you will come off as loopy. Don't do that. I am talking about a workplace or a situation where you are or by need to engage with people every day. So having a stony face with nary a crack or of a smile would really bring you as will make you look really proud. Okay, too proud to talk to people. Don't be that person. Why compliments work? Compliments are a great way to reduce social distance. Okay, I know we've been talking about social distancing all along during Corona, but here this social distance would imply removing the distance created in communication. See, with distance comes miscommunication. When you do not talk to people, they tend to assume things about you instead of knowing things about you. So when you know things about people and people know things about you, there is more room for better and accurate communication rather than assumptions. All right, so removing that kind of social distancing is essential. Now remove tension and open someone up, right? Compliments really help break this break this part, that it removes tension, it opens up someone. Okay, they are especially appreciated in a society where emotional generosity isn't commonplace. I personally love it when people drop me compliments. Their emotional generosity sends all round nice vibes to everyone. Friend to stranger, you look great today. Me, thank you, beams. Then opens the arms for a follow-up comment, right? You could say simply, yeah, I've been doing this, I've been doing yoga, or I've been, I've just gone to the parlor or whatever, or I've had a good night's sleep, good night's rest, and I'm fresh today. Yes, or I just bought a new set of clothes or something. Yeah. I also love dropping compliments to other people and making them smile. You look great with this shirt. You know, well, it should not come off as fake. It has to be a genuine appreciation. Yes, if that person looks good in a certain shirt, please do tell. And if that person looks really ugly in the shirt that he's wearing, better to not say anything at all, comment upon the shirt at all. Okay, so you look great with this shirt. The friend or the stranger could say, oh, thanks, I just bought it last week. I was actually planning to wear a different shirt. I'm glad you like it. And then this would open up new conversation topics such as where or how, or where he or she bought the shirt and what price it was in, or those kind of things you could talk about, or you could ask for the address of the place where he bought the shirt. Again, I think most people's issue with compliments is that they associate them with disingenuousness being agenda driven or sucking up, as in like your compliments should not be confused with flattery. Please do remember that when you flatter someone, you are looking for some favor, you're currying for favor. Okay, that should not be the case. I have seen many people get up on stage and talk so much about the other person, that person is so generous, that person is so kind, that person is so great, that person is so intelligent, that person is, oh my goodness. And all the time, that this person is really looking for favors, right? It comes off. Flattery and compliment are two very different things. You compliment when you really feel that person is, there is something good about that person. All right. So compliment should not be over exaggerated. It should not go overboard. Keep it very simple. Keep it very, see, there is, there is beauty in simplicity. There is a genuineness in simplicity. Please try to hold on to that genuineness within you. So if you are going to, over exaggerate everything, you will lose your individuality. You won't have your personality would be corrupted by all the artifice, the artificiality of over exaggeration or whatever. See, my point is simply this. Draw the line between flattery and compliment. Compliment could be used as an icebreaker. You could simply and don't give it every day. There are people who go about telling the same person every day that they are beautiful. Of course, that person actually knows that person is beautiful. You don't really have to beat it up around her all the time. It would turn awkward in no time at all. So instead of doing that, you could simply say it once and leave it at that. All right. And maybe if you really feel like complimenting, it has to come within from yourself. Okay. All right. So try not to come off as agenda driven or currying favor from someone, and try to not have any falseness or come off as having a motive behind complimenting, because that would really steal away the beauty of complimenting. So complimenting, especially in Islam, is not really permissible unless you really praise Allah for whatever whatever goodness you find in other people. So if someone seems to be really blessed with something, you better say subhanallah before you compliment that person, because see, no person is beautiful of his own accord. No person is wealthy, or someone has something because he plans to have it. It's mainly because God has blessed that person. So acknowledge the blessing first, and then you can go ahead and compliment that person. That's the actual way of complimenting in our faith. So and it seems to be applicable, you because see, anyone who believes in God should actually acknowledge it, that that no man is capable of having something by himself, of his or her own accord. No person is poor because he chose to be poor. No person is rich because he chose to be rich. They were just born that way. It was destined for them, and it's all, it's all God given. So you really can't compliment someone for having something they had no control over, right? So yes, again, use a surrounding object as an anchor. As I said earlier, when you talk to strangers, or like, we're not talking about utter strangers here, please bear that in mind. Strangers as in workplace strangers, where home with whom you have not had any much talk, but you have seen often. Okay, so when you talk to the other people, you can you need to have a point of reference that both can visualize, both can relate to. So use a surrounding object as an anchor, as in use an object that is in the vicinity, in your visual periphery. All right. So at a talk, the speaker is doing a great job. I like the section where he talked about the role of innovation in startups. What do you think about that? So if you're attending a conference, you could talk to the person next to you and discuss the points that have just been proposed by the speaker. You could do that, or you could discuss with the other person, like if you missed out some point that was spoken on stage, you could simply ask ask the person sitting beside you, did you get that? I missed what he said just now. That would be a nice icebreaker. Again, at a social event, I had such a hard time finding the location. It took me about 20 minutes to find the place. What time did you get here? Again, Regis totally lost his temper at the morning meeting. So see, you can talk about things that both of you can relate to. If you had difficulty finding that a place, a certain location, you could talk about it and also expect the other person to answer for it. No, I've been here plenty of times, so it was not that difficult for me. That could be the response. Or you could say, oh, I had an equally bad time finding this place. Yeah, it's a lost world. you know you could have fun talking. All right. Again, this is something I wouldn't really recommend anyone to do. Regis totally lost his temper at the morning meeting. Did you hear about it? Because this is plain gossip. Try to avoid gossiping about people, because this would be asking for information that not really that person is not really privy to, and you don't really want to spread rumors about people. At a cafe while queuing up to get your drinks. I love the dark chocolate mocha here. Have you tried it before? Well, again, this is something not I would really recommend. Talking about with complete strangers, with near acquaintances, yes, you can do this. All right. At the supermarket, at the ramen aisle, I'm thinking between the mushroom flavored ramen and hot spicy ramen, and I'm not sure which one to pick. So if you're at a superstore, a supermarket, and you really want to buy something, and there are other people beside you who are equally contemplating about it, you can strike up a conversation. It need not lead to, see, you don't, not every conversation has to lead to something else. Okay, so you can talk for merely for the sake of talking, to break the monotony, but well, it's not always necessary. So you be the better judge of in what situation requires for you to talk. Using a surrounding object takes the attention away from both you and the person and creates a safe zone for both of you to connect without going into personal details. So it is a safe subject to talk. When you're talking about other things besides yourself or that person, you are giving a safe topic of conversation so that both can contribute to it. All right. After some sharing and after a certain comfort level has been achieved, you can broach personal topics. Be open to using different surrounding objects as your conversation starter. It can include the person's possessions. That is, I saw a similar tie at Macy's last week and wanted to get that. So you can talk about, whatever the person has, or and say and talk about how you've already seen something very similar to it and you wanted to buy it, or something like, where did you get that, or relate to it, or even someone else. I've seen that person at similar events before. I heard he or she is a director at firm Y. Have you talked to him or her yet? Yeah. So there are numerous ways of starting a conversation with strangers or near acquaintances. We need to talk to total strangers only in situations where it is necessary. I'm not asking you to, please bear this in mind. I'm not asking you to go and strike up conversation with utter strangers on the street. All right. I am this particular part is mainly for job related situations. Okay, job related situations where you need to have a platform to express yourself. All right, I guess this is all for today. We'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. We'll complete with ending a conversation with strangers as well, and maybe the day after we can start with Coleridge. For now, thank you so much. Jazakallahu khair. Stay safe, be happy. Assalamu alaikum.